This is the injury report presented by NYU Langone Health. Mets pitcher Sean Manaea had just started to ramp up his throwing, and then all of a sudden he had to slow down his rehab after an MRI revealed inflammation in his strained right oblique that he suffered weeks ago. So in today's injury report, we have Dr. Borowski of NYU Langone Sports Medicine Center to talk about how Manaea's recent setback is going to affect his return to the mound. First and foremost, Doc, thanks for hopping on with us. We could get straight into this. As a former athlete, I know that anytime we start ramping it up with our rehab, it's our mind telling our body that the injury can keep up. So was he going too hard with his rehab to cause this setback? And what could have caused that inflammation to, I guess, show up again?
So it's hard to say whether or not it was a setback in the sense that was this a planned MRI just to see how things were progressing from where it was previously, or did he start to have symptoms again? Because sometimes people's radiology um, images do not match up with how they feel, right? So sometimes you can have a more clinical improvement, like he may have been feeling better, but yet he still has a little bit of this edema or swelling in the muscle left over from what it was before. So I'm not sure whether or not he actually had clinical symptoms again, like it was worsening. If it did, if he was having symptoms that were worse, it could be because he was ramping it up too fast, that something that he was doing in his rehab protocol got it injured again, worsened it up again. But it's hard to say without knowing that clinical side of things.
Well, looking back at both situations, if I'm Sean Manaea, I'm absolutely upset, like regardless, because now he's been completely shut down for 2 weeks and he had to receive a PRP injection. Then the team's going to reevaluate him then. So should both the Mets, Manaea, and the Amazons be concerned about this recent setback?
I think it is concerning in the sense that it does slow down the progression that he had going into like having this momentum going into his rehab protocol. But we really want to get it taken care of now, right? The oblique is something that is constantly being used during the throwing and pitching phases. And so we need to take care of it now so it doesn't continue to be a nagging problem. This is something that was bothering him earlier in training camp and it just never went away. So shutting it down, doing the proper rehab is the best way to approach it now so that it doesn't continue to bother him throughout the entire season.
When news first broke of this oblique injury, the Mets said that he was going to need a full spring training before he could even rejoin the rotation. Now he's got this setback. How does that affect that timeline?
I mean, and right now he's shut down completely for 2 weeks, which I think is appropriate. And then they'll start rehabbing him again and ramping up that protocol, probably in a bit more of a slower graded fashion this time around. So it's probably going to be at least, 4 to 6 additional weeks potentially, just to try to get him back to pitching levels.
The Mets could really use him back in that lineup, so
Yeah.
hopefully he progresses a little bit faster and doesn't rush himself back and suffer another setback. But Doc, $1 million question here. Let's say there's a non-pro athlete out there and they suffered a setback from pushing their body a little bit too hard during their rehab. What advice and treatment options would you give them?
I think working with a good sports medicine physician to talk it through to see kind of what was the setback, how severe was the setback, how much time do we have to take off at this point? Do we have to do complete rest or can we do relative rest? I think it's important. So it's nice to have somebody to talk about that with when it comes to sports injuries. So I would certainly seek out someone that you trust and you want to, invest that time in that relationship with a sports medicine physician. But it's best to kind of take care of muscle and tendon issues sooner rather than later. The longer we let them nag, the worse off it's going to be to try to rehab them in the future. We may have to take more time off in order to get them back to where we really need to be. So kind of addressing them sooner rather than later is better.
You're nicer than me, Doc, because I would have told him to go sit there butts down somewhere because no one's paying you 3 years, $75 million to rush back and get back on the mound. Doc, thanks for hopping on with this. This was fun.